Welcome back to another episode of Clutch Gene Sports with my guy, Josh Harper. How's it going, bro?
It's going great, baby. We Super Bowl bound, so we can't complain over here. Let's get it.
Hey, man. So here's a little different, man. You got a brother coaching in the Super Bowl, so that's even more emotional. Everything that game was just crazy. Like
Right.
first half, you and I were texting, and we were both text each other like it's not looking good. Like no momentum, no nothing going for them. Come out at halftime, I'm expecting 7 points. If you only get seven, you're not in this game. They
Mm.
go get three, and then next thing you know, freaking flip the game on a fourth down, and they changed the game around completely. What did you notice from this game from the first half to the second half? Did you notice any uh, defensive adjustments, offensive adjustments, or anything like that? Because I definitely felt like Steve Wilkes definitely started stacking the box, and that was the difference of the game.
Yeah. So I know he put Eric at the end a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That was big. And then on offense, Brock Purdy was using his legs, like him using his legs. It creates this different dynamic for the Niners. So like those were the two runs. I can barely hear myself. Those were the two runs that the two adjustments that I've seen, from the Niners.
And what's crazy is Brock at one point, and I was telling my uncle this during the game. I was like, "All right, I love what Brock's doing, but don't start getting one look and take off." Like, because there was a few times where he kind of walked himself into two sacks. I felt like he walked himself into sacks in the sense of he looked one and then looked to go. I'm like,
Mhm.
I get that's there, but at the same time, you are a great quarterback when it comes to navigating the pocket to extend plays in the pass game.
Mm.
But then he started taking off. I'm like, oh damn, we got Brock Vick over here. Like that was he was running the ball. I'm like, oh shit, like he ain't trying to go down. He's trying to run people over. I'm like, oh my god, man, that game was crazy.
Yeah, like so what I saw from Brock, he kind of looked like Steve Young. Like it was one where he was rolling out. He scrambled to his left and he didn't slide. He didn't like dive lunge forward. He tried to like run somebody over. I think it was his teammate, but I don't know if you remember that run. But it was towards
Is
the
the
goal
one he
line.
ran into Debo?
He might have ran into Debo. He didn't slide. He Brock turned into like this different type of quarterback in that second half. And you can just tell like he just felt comfortable out there. It was no way, it was gonna be his fault that they lost the game. Brock, he just turned into this different quarterback. And if he continues to play like that, bro, the Niners can, make some noise in this Super Bowl, and we can finally bring that Lombardi home since '94. So I love what I saw from Brock in that second half.
And what's crazy is Brock from the first half, right? Like he did struggle a bit. Like he was
Mhm.
struggling. And the way he could just flip the game, like using the game script and everything, and just flip the game upside down. Like he completely went berserk in the second half. Um, for me, watching Brock Purdy in the second half, the difference is the legs. Like
Mhm.
even though he was making some freaking throws on one of them, I thought, in my opinion, I thought the best throw of the game. Not necessarily was the best throw of the game, because the best throw in terms of taking a hit in the pocket was it the first drive to Debo Samuel.
Mhm.
He took a nice slick 14 15-yard pass to Debo Samuel. But my favorite play of the game, or favorite throw of the game, was when Brock Purdy he scrambled the left, stopped on a dime, went back right, found Juice over the middle for like 20 yards, and like it ignited the offense. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
you was different. Um,
So yeah, so I'm starting to see who Brock is. Like, so the off schedule plays, the maneuver in the pocket. I think that's who Brock is. When he's, and then he's adding moving the chains with his legs. He's not just extending the play and trying to find somebody deep. He's actually running. And when he adds that element to the game, now there's just another adjustment that the defense has to make. And, I know KC is looking like, we're not going to let this dude beat us every third down and, with his legs. So you make sure you're spying him. And when you start to make those adjustments and take a defender out of coverage that's when Shanahan really could work. Like, okay, if he's gonna spy Purdy on this, they only have 6, dropping back in coverage. So, let's work this side and in and out them and play over and under this person, this defender. Man, it's gonna be crazy to see Shanahan work in the Super Bowl.
And what's crazy is looking back at because you talking about spying,
Mm-hmm.
looking back at Brock Purdy, they actually put a spy on him during that fourth quarter, and the spy couldn't get to him. Like Brock Purdy was outrunning the spy. There was times where he was actually beating the spy with his arm. So Detroit tried putting the spy on him, and it didn't work. I was very surprised. Like Brock's not the fastest dude, he's not the biggest dude, but he was outrunning there. He outran the linebacker on 3rd and 4 late in the fourth quarter. They had a spy on him, and Azoni, the linebacker with the long blonde hair, couldn't get to him. But for me, I think the biggest thing was confidence. Like I felt like when Brock gets a little urge of confidence in a game, whether he starts with that confidence or he gets it somehow later in the game, like he is probably one of the most confident players I've seen in a while. Like he does not care. He's gonna tell you in your face, what are you doing? He's going to try to make sure he's on your behind as an offense. But I think that the difference of the game wasn't necessary. I don't think it was Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy played a hell of a second half. Like it was beyond like one of the best second halves I've seen from a quarterback from the 49ers ever. And didn't get to be able to see Joe Montana, Steve Young, but it's up there with some of the Colin Kaepernick halves that I've seen. But the biggest thing was Deebo Samuel's urgency. Big play, real quick bubble screen, 15 yards, pass over the middle, and he's running. He get the big pass, and he's over here. Hey, no, let's go NASCAR. Let's go NASCAR. Trying to get Kyle Shanahan to give Brock a play so they could go no huddle. Instead, they end up huddling up and getting the right play and right situation. But it was Deebo Samuel, in my opinion, that changed the game. His energy, his enthusiasm, wanting to get on the ball as fast as he could. I thought that was the leadership that the 49ers were lacking in the first half. They didn't have no one in the first half. I didn't see anyone get pissed off. Like, I seen Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw go over to the sideline and just look like pissed, like they're head in the air, upset. But I didn't see no one showing like no true emotion. Like normally when you're getting your ass handed to, because they got their ass handed to in the first half, like plain and simple. You see veterans, you see leaders trying to get their teams, their heads out of their asses. Like, let's go. I didn't see that until the second half. That was crazy.
Look, man, no, I agree, and I forget who said it for practice, but Deebo was out at practice, and they were like, one of the players said, it might have been McCaffrey, that Deebo brings this type of juice that you can't reciprocate, and when he's on the field, like the energy level is just that much higher. So you definitely see that on game day. And I definitely seen it play a huge part in that comeback as well. Also, I don't know. I might have texted you this. I don't know if I did, but I might have texted somebody else. But when Christian McCaffrey was talking on the field, I said, okay, this game is about to turn around. This game is about to turn around. You don't really see Christian McCaffrey talking to other players. At least I don't. But when he did, I was like, okay, he's finna turn it up as well. This game is about to go somewhere where the Lions don't want it to go. So when he got talking crazy, I knew it was good.
Yeah, when he talks crazy, it's funny because his kind of talking is like, it low key looks friendly, like he's such a nice guy, like humble guy. But when he starts talking, it's like, oh shit, like you piss off CMC, the guy that's probably the hardest guy to piss off on the team. But I thought it was crazy, like watching Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right? Like that was something. Like starts waving in the second quarter, bye to the fans, takes a cheap shot on Deebo Samuel. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, saw a lot of Lions fans like that's not a cheap shot. Deebo should have known it was coming. Bro, when your back is towards someone, you come up and you hit him on the side to blindside him. One, that's a cheap shot because the play's not even nowhere near you, so you're not even cracking back to make a block. So like for me, I thought that was dirty. I mean, to see the way he's getting dragged by every 49er because their Niners was talking to him. CMC stiff armed him. After that, he talked his talk to him. He got in the face of Trent. Got in his face at one point. That dude is getting dragged. Like you cannot. If you go and talk your talk against the Niners, you better be standing on all 10 because they're gonna come at your ass and he wasn't ready for the battle.
Yeah.
Missed CMC on a open field tackle that changed the game. Um, what was your opinion on, like, obviously we did see the defense change 360 from the first half to the second half. The Detroit Lions cannot run the ball in the second half. I did on shows later with Rohan and Ashley, um, Wednesday and Friday shows. I did mention it to Rohan because I was like, you know what? The Niners used to do on the outside is put Rick Armstead outside on base packages. And I asked him, like, would you put Kinlaw there? And he was like, that's actually an interesting point because we have seen the Niners do that, but we haven't seen it under Steve Wilks.
Right. Right.
That was the most interesting thing I noticed from the game is them going Reek Armstead outside at that edge position and
Mhm.
having Javon Kinlaw inside. But it was more a mentality coming out the second half. Like, we're going to force them to throw the damn ball. Like,
Right.
they're not going to run the ball without play action. They're not getting 1 yard. What was the difference between the first half and the second half in terms of run game?
So it was the first down run. They weren't allowing the Lions these huge chunk of runs on first down. Like in the first half, you just like Montgomery 7 yard run, Montgomery 8 yard run and this on first down. You see, and then Gibbs come in, he's breaking to the outside, getting these easy first downs, and the D line just was not getting any push. They weren't containing the outside. So that I don't know if it was just them saying like, okay, we're getting embarrassed at halftime, we're not going to allow this no more, or if it was the adjustment that putting Armstead out there. We seen Armstead at the DN spot, it was either last year or 2 years ago, a lot, right? We seen him a lot, and that's when they were at the top of their game, rush defense and things like that. But I think it had to have been that bringing Kinlaw in there and having more bigger bodies in there to stop the run. We know Bosa is a good run stopper, and it was encouraging to see Kinlaw in there and it not be affected. Because I always say like the more Kinlaw plays, the more he sticks out. So you want to kind of compress his reps, but I mean he was out there a lot in the second half and. I didn't notice him too much. I haven't watched the film, but I didn't notice him too much. I did notice, Hargrave a lot, but, I think it was a good adjustment that they made.
No, I thought it was a great adjustment. And
Mhm.
then even what Steve Wilkes started doing, he started creeping Tashawn Gibson down into the
Yeah.
box,
Mhm.
bringing him into the box. Like for me, when I was watching the first half, I was telling my uncle, he was like, "Bro, what are they? Why are they playing so soft coverage?
Mhm.
Why are they like their DBs are normally like up a little closer?" He's like, "Why are they playing so soft coverage?" I'm like, "They're trying to take away Jared Goff, and I think that was the wrong thing to
Yeah.
do. I
Yeah.
thought they should have from the beginning take away the run game and force Jared Goff to beat you." And I was like, watch. So like if they make the adjustment by taking away the run, adding another guy on the box, which is Tashawn Gibson, bringing that safety down, I was like, you're not gonna have your corners up, bring them in press man, and let them press bell or whatever you want to do. You can still play zone out of press alignment. I was like, allow them to get physical at the line of scrimmage with the
Mhm.
receivers. And then he started noticing, like, hey, like Gibson's in the box, Gibson's in the
Mhm.
box, and you're taking away the run. I'm like, watch, the game's gonna flip.
Mhm.
So that was like the little things that Steve Wilkes. I'm like, how can you not catch this mid game? Like you literally see mid game that this is happening to you, and you're not picking it up. Like that to me was blew my mind. I'm glad he was able to pick it up. Now I went on Twitter. I was in a space during halftime.
Mhm.
I went out and I said Steve Wilkes will not be back next year. Even if
Mhm.
the Niners win the Super Bowl, I do not think he's back. What are your thoughts on Steve Wilkes returning as the 49ers defensive coordinator?
I mean, I would understand if appreciate it, Larry. And I would understand if they were to go in a different direction than Steve Wilkes, depending on how, the philosophy. Do they see eye to eye? But at the end of the day, the Niners were missing a lot of tackles. Steve Wilkes wasn't his best. He did not call a good game. He didn't make adjustments until halftime, and that could have been too late. So I mean I could see why if Shanahan decides to go in a different direction. um, it would be more than the defense not playing up to par for this year, specifically in the run game. I think it would have to be it would be due to like them not seeing eye to eye, him making him come on the field. Shanahan wanted to see something more that Wilkes doesn't agree with. Because at the end of the day, like I like the like I said, the Niners were missing tackles. The Niners were missing tackles. They weren't making plays. Warner was not having a good game. Could that be due to Wilkes not putting them in position? That could be it. So I would have to go back and see the film and see, is it more so the personnel just not making plays, or is it, Wilkes not putting them in position to make the play? So I would understand if, if Shanahan decides to go a different route at defensive coordinator. But
So
that runs the risk of the same thing happening again, unless they hire from within. I don't know. Well, I mean, that still be a Wilkes type of guy. So, they learn from Wilkes too. So I don't know. It's sticky. It's a sticky situation.
yeah, for me, I always thought like Steve Wilkes wasn't the right answer because you're bringing him in, doesn't know the system. He has to adjust his coaching philosophy to fit your coaching philosophy. And like when you have to do that, your first year is not going to be good. One, because you're learning on the fly. Two, I just felt like it wasn't for me. When you're having to have your linebacker teach the defensive coordinator the system and have him teach the defense coordinator how he likes the game to be called for his defense. I thought that was interesting. And I think when you go back and you watch when the Niners have struggled, they don't make adjustments in the first half. They change up second half, whether it's Fred Warner going over X's and O's with him and saying, look, this is what I'm seeing. When they have a longer period of time to actually conversate, things come out and they change. Or whether it's Kyle Shanahan noticing something on the film during halftime and saying, hey, this needs to be changed. But it just feels like they're not on the same page. And I feel like Steve Wilkes has done a great job with the secondary. He's done a phenomenal job with the secondary. But it's at the end of the day, the secondary isn't what this team is built on. And I felt like this team has way too much money invested on the defensive line for the defensive line to play as bad as they have been for the entirety of this season. I felt like the D line should have been the top 3, top 2 defensive line in the NFL, and they have not played up to that standard. To me, is that Chris Kaserik? Is that Steve Wilkes? At the end of the day, it falls back on the defensive coordinator, not the D-line coach. So for me, I felt like this defense could have been a lot better this year. I always thought Daniel Bullock, the safety coach, should have been hired as the defensive coordinator even last year. So that's why I kind of brought it up. I thought it was a great adjustment. That he did prove me wrong on the adjustment, but it's something that I thought he should have did in the first half. So I'm glad to see that. Now, the game flipped upside down. What play changed the game during this? Was it something that happened towards the end of the half? Was it something that happened after the half? What changed the game?
I'm gonna say the Niners forcing the field goal before halftime, because if they score a touchdown, I don't know, like that's a lot of points to make up. I know it's only a 4-point difference, but that's a lot of points to make up in that half. So with them stopping the Lions and making them kick that field goal before halftime, it gave them a sense like, okay, we can stop this team. But here's the adjustments that we're about to make. Let's do this. XO. We're gonna do this. And then it really turned around when that fumble happened and they happened to recover it. And the offense was like, okay, y'all got to stop. Okay, it's our turn. Let's go ahead and punch it in. Or did they scored on that, right? They scored a touchdown
on
right?
that fumble, yeah, on the touch.
So the offense was like, okay, it's our turn. Y'all held us down. Y'all had our back. Got the turnover. Our turn. Boom, touchdown. That's when the whole game flipped over, and it was just a new game after that.
And absolutely, for me, I think the biggest thing was holding them to 3 was the super important part. But I felt like the biggest difference was actually the fourth downs. I think those fourth downs that Steve Wilkes, like I even told Uncle, like, why are they not getting, just get points? Like in the play, I get in the regular season being ultra aggressive and doing your shenanigans. But when I saw, I'm like, you're going for it on fourth here when you need points. Like that, to me, that didn't make sense. He did that twice. Didn't get points at 6 points. That's a swing. If you look at it, it's a Niners score. That's a 10-point swing right there. So looking at that, I thought the play before the fourth down was a stupid play by the Detroit Lions. Your running backs are averaging 6 yards a carry. You run it with Amon-Ra St. Brown on 3rd and 4 out of the shotgun. That to me, I'm like, what are you thinking as a head coach, as an offensive coordinator in that situation when it's 4th down territory? Obviously, head coach tells you already, hey, 4th down territory on that 3rd down play call. Running it out of the backfield, Amon-Ra was the wrong choice. Yeah. That to me was like, oh, you trying to get cute. You trying to show Kyle like, oh, we're the ones here that are better. And like, nah, that didn't happen. He ended up getting 2 yards, 4th and 2. They forced an incompletion, which was actually more of a drop. Wasn't an incompletion, it was a drop. Josh Reynolds had a few of those drops that were the crucial. Um, but I think as soon as that happened, Niners marched down the field, they scored, and then right after that fumble, they scored again. So they scored back to back to back like that, and I was like, holy shit! And then when after the first fourth down, I looked over to my little cousin because he was all nervous. We was all nervous. I'm like, relax. I was like, momentum just, I like, relax. Momentum just shifted. And he's like, what? I'm like, watch. And then we go down and scored. He's like, oh, we're down. Still only down 7. I'm like, telling you, momentum shifted. Like the moment that fourth down happened, like you could see the entire team on the sideline, from coaches to the guys that are at the end of the roster. The entire momentum changed, and I think that was the biggest thing. What was your thoughts on, obviously, because we saw Dan Campbell be ultra aggressive. What was your thoughts on Dan Campbell being ultra aggressive on fourth downs, but not right before the half to get the touchdown?
Man, when you're up in the game by that much, and you're facing an explosive Niners offense, we know how many points they scored in the regular season. Whatever they're averaging, 30 plus points, whatever they're averaging, we know they're an explosive offense. You have to get points. You got to trust your kicker to get you points. I know that, he's probably thinking like, if we score here again, if we score a touchdown here again, we can put them away. But at some point, it's the playoffs, it's the NFC Championship game. You're playing to get to the Super Bowl. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in how long? If have they been to a Super Bowl?
No.
You got to get points, Dan. I know he didn't sleep well. He couldn't have slept well. Because those points, it changes how the Niners have to approach on offense. Maybe now they're hurrying up. Like, okay, let's get into the offense. Let's get into the offense quicker. So he has to get points on that, and I think he's kicking himself still to this day.
So what's crazy is, so I thought at the end of the half, if I'm Dan Campbell, I'd go for it on fourth down. I don't kick the field goal.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's like, okay, you're up already. They're up 10. No, 14. They're up 14. They're up 14 with 2 possessions. You could literally put the nail in the coffin right there at the half if you score a touchdown. They've been ultra aggressive all season in situations like that. But instead, Dan Campbell chooses to not be aggressive in that situation, but then chooses to be aggressive later in the game on a 4th and 2. To me, there's no difference. 4th and 2 versus a 4th and goal at the 2. You're using your best fourth down play. Either one. You need 2 yards. Like you have Amon-Ra. You've been running the ball at a high clip. I thought that was a mistake by Dan Campbell. And then him coming over, and then the Niners just going crazy. Watching Brock Purdy, to me, was very fun yesterday. And I know your son, before our show, I asked your son, I said, hey, what was your thoughts of the game? And he said, Brock was cooking. What did you see? Because Brock was cooking. He absolutely was. But what play from Brock, in your opinion, changed the game in terms of, you knew, even though we were down 17 or we were down 10 at one point or 7, you knew at that point Brock Purdy was going to lead the Niners to a comeback victory?
So I don't even know when this happened, but when he made this play, when he escaped the pocket, broke a tackle, rolled out to his left, I believe. He did his famous, set back up, while rolling out, and found Juice on the sideline, tippy toes. When I saw that, I was like, okay, Brock's coming to play. I don't know when that was, what quarter that was, but I knew, we were going to have a chance, and I knew Brock came to play at that point in time, and when he's making plays like that, we know what everybody else can do around him. I mean, we've seen Debo ball out for years. We know what Brandon Ayuk can do, Kittle. We have the playmakers. But when Brock is playing like that, I'm not to say that he doesn't, but I'm saying when he does, when he's playing at his best and making plays off schedule like that, I don't know who's going to beat this team, man. I don't know.
And what's crazy is the plays that change the game. So you could say whatever you want. I know a lot of people, not necessarily you, but like I'm talking about in general. A lot of people are like, oh, Brock got so lucky on that Brandon Ayuk catch. Hey, I don't care. I really don't care. I truly, should it have been intercepted? Probably. If it hits you in the face mask, you probably should catch it. But the thing is there probably also was a PI there. And 2, I'd rather be lucky than good at times, because I don't care. There's any Super Bowl, any playoff game you watch, there is a play that you could say that was luck.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Tom Brady. Look at Tom Brady when they came back 28-3 against the Atlanta Falcons. That ball that was bobbled in the air that Julian Edelman caught on like his fingertips on the
Yeah.
ground. That was
Look,
luck. That's when
look at
you
look at Eli Manning. How did they win the Super Bowl that one year?
like,
So I mean, it happens. Luck happens. So
and
sometimes
that's
it
the
gets
thing is
lucky.
absolutely. So that play for me was the play that I felt like changed the game. I think the
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ayuk one, because I feel like every game when you're having a comeback, you need one thing to go your way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like, for me, just that one play went the Niners' way. Ball bounced right into Brandon Ayuk, who had phenomenal concentration on the catch. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, when he made that, I thought it was a touchdown. Like, I jumped up, that's
I look
touchdown.
like
Like,
one.
because I didn't think he got touched. I was like, oh shit, we just scored on a 51-yard bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Ball went our way. That's ball game. Like at
Yeah,
that point, I was hoping Croc sounded the band
that's
and have
classic.
them know, because to me, I felt like that was the difference. I was like, oh, like after that, all this game we won.
Yeah.
Like I know we had, I want to say we had just tied it up, maybe had just taken the lead, but that game was so crazy. Like the emotions first half, like damn, like we just got our ass handed to you, but it wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
After looking at it after the game, I'm like, the first half wasn't as bad as I thought it was, because we had 3 possessions on offense, I believe.
Mhm.
We had a 3 and out, a touchdown, and an
And an
interception,
interception.
and they just controlled the ball, running the ball, and converting on third downs. So looking back at it, I'm like, actually, it wasn't that bad. Give the offense the ball, and we're going to be scoring. Do you think Kyle had the right game plan um, in this game? I know we were a little bit pass heavy, but he was also kind of trying to establish the run the entirety of the way, and I thought that
Mhm.
was the smart decision, keeping Christian McCaffrey heavily involved in the run game and not just going very pass heavy, pass. Oh my god, pass
Mhm.
heavy with Brock Purdy. Do you think that was the right game plan, or you think from the beginning he should have came out firing?
No, yeah, I get it, right? I get it. The Lions are a good run defense, but our best player is Christian McCaffrey. So what we need to feed him the ball to get the offense moving. So I agree with that game plan. Although you know the Lions pass defense isn't the best in the NFL. You still gotta feed your best player, and that's Christian McCaffrey. So yes, I'm 100% on board with what Kyle was trying to do. Again, they made it tough. They were stacking the line of scrimmage. They were basically saying, no, pass the ball. Christian McCaffrey's not going to beat us. So I have no problems whatsoever with that game plan.
And I thought it was smart. I did say Christian McCaffrey would go over the 70 yards that everyone was predicting him to have be under. I did
Mhm.
say he would have 90 plus yards. He had just 90. I was kind of mad that he didn't get 91, so I could be right on that one. But for me, do think keeping Christian McCaffrey heavily involved in the game was the way to go. You got to feed your horses. That's one thing you got to do is make sure you have your dogs with the ball in their hands, because they could change the game at any moment. I just felt like I wish Kyle, the Niners were struggling, right, offensively in terms of they weren't putting up any, not necessarily points. They turned the 3 and out, turnover, and then a touchdown. I felt like Kyle at one point, I was hoping he would dial up a George Kittle play. And what I mean by that is a little boot action, George Kittle wide ass open on a
Mhm.
little leak around or whatever, and just put the ball in his hand, because when George has the ball in his hand, he's looking for contact. He's
Mhm.
looking to establish his dominance on you. And for me, I felt like that was needed, just a tad bit, just because when
Mhm.
George Kittle is doing that, everyone else goes crazy. You start
Yeah.
seeing Debo like, oh, I ain't letting George outdo me running someone
Yep.
over. And then he start like they all want to like outdo each other in a friendly manner. So I
Mhm.
felt like I was waiting for that George Kittle play, and then he ends up going to it, and George picks up like 25 yards. And I was like, there it is. That's something that the Niners need. But I don't like seeing George Kittle get one target in the entirety of the first half. Like, to me, he is too good of a player to get one target. But I know
Mhm.
how hard it is to feed this many mouths. But it's like
Mhm.
at some point you got to throw it to George Kittle, who was one of your best players, and especially in the time where Brock Purdy was struggling to push the ball down the field. You got to create something easy for him. Do you felt like George Kittle should have been more involved in the pass game?
Always. George Kittle should I mean, he's a tight end. Tight end is always the quarterback's best friend. George Kittle should always be targeted in the game, right? Not once, not twice. Definitely, with the amount of talent that they have around each other, it should be at least three to four at minimum, right? And that's just minimum. Him, Kittle, and Debo have this certain, and you mentioned it, like this certain persona when they get the ball in their hand and make something happen with it. Like it just brings this different type of energy to the whole team, and when they're playing well, I feel like the whole team is playing well, and this energy that they have as a unit is just unmatched. So yeah, you Kittle, and it's I don't think it's that hard to to feed everybody, right? You're handing the ball off to McCaffrey, he's going to get his, right. Debo can get the ball in so many different types of ways: quick screens, reverses, end arounds, things like that. And Ayuk is going to get open, and Kittle, you got to find, and Kittle's going to get open, and you just got to find ways to get them the ball. Kittle and Debo should always be involved somehow, some way.
Definitely agree. Now, I don't know if you're able to see Kyle Shanahan's emotional post-game speech. I saw two of them. So he had one on the podium when they were receiving the NFC Championship trophy, and then he had one in the locker room. And one thing I took away from him was during the trophy presentation, he went on and said, "It's been a long time overdue. Like we've been waiting for this one." And they asked about the Chiefs, and he kind of like smiled, like, that's what we want. We've been waiting for it. Kind of sounds like Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers kind of wanted the Chiefs. Like, you know what? We want revenge. Like, we're coming back with a vengeance, and we wanted to see the Chiefs. And then in the locker room, he talked about great victory. We needed everyone on the team. That's not the one we came here for. We got one more to go, and y'all know what I'm talking about. And it kind of felt like Kyle Shanahan was emotional, like in a way, like he kind of expressed that emotion. And you don't normally see that from Kyle Shanahan. Like normally Kyle is usually even keel, not trying to show too much emotion. What are your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan's emotional post-game speeches? The fact like you weren't able to see him, but the way I explained them to you, what are your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan's emotional post-game speech?
Man, so when you win in that fashion, when you're down like that, and I don't care, everybody's human. So yeah, you think you have a chance to come back at all times, right? But but in the back of your mind, you're like, man, they really handed it to us. Like, what, we got to do something, right, before it's too late. And they came back so quick, but at the end of the day, when you win in that fashion, your emotion inside is going to come out. It wasn't a blowout win where you're just like, okay, yeah, we did that, and now it's time to look to the Super Bowl. That's what we came here for. They really had to fight, claw, scratch for this win, right? So yeah, I definitely see why he had an emotional speech. I think I caught a clip of it, right? He said something. I forget what I think he mentioned it to the team, like we were down at halftime, and I was like, man, how are we gonna get he said something along those lines. I gotta find it, but yeah, emotional win like that, your emotional side is gonna come out, and you're gonna let the team know how proud they are, that how proud he is that they came out and fought back and won a game.
Like he even, it was crazy because he even said during his post game speech, he was like, yeah, man, when we scored 3 and not a touchdown after half, I kind of felt like, man, it's gonna be a lot harder to win this game.
That's what I was talking about right there. I saw a clip of that. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, when he said, I'm like, oh damn, like, and at some point when you are playing in these kind of games, when you are down by that much, you kind of like, all right, we got to get our way back into this. But you understand like how hard it's gonna be. Like, damn, we might be out unless we get this. Like, and I definitely felt like Kyle's emotional speech carried on with the team. Like they played that way. They played very emotional after the game. Phenomenal Lenore running over to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Chase Lucas, getting in their face, talking that smack. Like, oh, remember what you guys are saying? Like, what's up now? Like, they carried that emotion with them from start to finish. I definitely feel like the 49ers are in a great spot now. I wanted to save this conversation for last. I know we talked about this player a little bit earlier. The media has bashed on him for a while now. But also too, he's also been compared to some of the best quarterbacks. So it's understandable on why the media is doing some things that they're doing. But is Brock Purdy, officially a top 5 quarterback. I'm gonna read you off a stat
Mhm.
from the second half. It's gonna that Opta stats put out in the second half of the NFC Championship game. Brock Purdy threw for 150 plus yards, rushed for 45 plus yards, completed 80% of his passes, averaged 10 plus yards per rush. No other NFL quarterback in the last 30 years has done all of that in a single half, whether it was regular season or postseason. Is Brock Purdy officially in that upper echelon of top quarterbacks in the National Football League?
Man, that's tough because he balled. He showed his ass off last game, man, and that was just a fun game to see from Purdy. Um, but like I always want, and it's a good argument. You can argue, is he top five or not? It's not so far fetched that it was like earlier in the year. It's
Mm-hmm.
not so far fetched. It's a good argument, right? And is he top five? To me, right now, I this year he is. He is, right?
I'm glad you said
He's
this year.
he's
I'm
he's
glad you
top
said this year.
he's top 5. You know, he played really, really well last year too. He's still young. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not gonna name him top 5 right now, right? Yeah, him and Kyle have a connection that we never saw with Jimmy G, right? We didn't see this with none of the quarterbacks. But there's some good quarterbacks in this league, right? Can I name 5? You got of course Mahomes is one, Josh Allen is up there, Burrow was hurt this year, Lamar Jackson. um who am I missing? He
Herbert potentially, depending on how you see things.
I would I was just talking to one of my chats. I'm gonna put Purdy above Herbert. Like
Okay.
we talk about talent, right? We talk about teams being talented and this and that. The Chargers always have one of the most talented rosters every year, and has he gone? He has gone to the playoffs and he blew it, right? Or they blew it. I don't want to just put it on him. They blew it. So I'm already putting Purdy over Herbert. So am I missing somebody? He could be top 5.
And
He could be top 5. It's a good argument. And and again, the reason why I didn't want to like early in the year, I caught some flack for people from people saying like, is he elite or not? You know, he's proven right now he can be elite. This year he was an elite. Like, but this business is consistency, right? We gotta, can you do it again? Can you do it again? But this year he's an elite quarterback. He's in my top 5. He's still young, so the bumps and bruises he's taken, I never really wanted to come out and like bash him or anything like that, like some of the national media has done. But man, it's an argument. It's not far fetched.
I'm glad you said this year, right? Because I think every year, year to year, no matter what it is,
Mm-hmm.
quarterback rankings, receiver rankings, any positional rankings, they adjust, they move. One year a quarterback has a bad season. For example, if your top receiver goes down, your O line goes down, you're gonna have a bad year. Like that's what's gonna happen. So I'm glad you did say this year because I do think Brock Purdy has played like a top 5 quarterback statistically and on tape. You
Mm-hmm.
looking at him, he has played as a top 5 quarterback this year. And you could name quarterbacks, for example. I'm gonna name not necessarily a quarterback that's better than him, but if you look at last year, he's up there in the top 5 quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts last year was a top 5 quarterback. This year comes out, has a bad season statistically. Now, whether that's because he's trying too hard, trying to repeat the MVP season, it's always harder to go back to the NFC Championship 2 years in a row. So there's a lot of things that factor into it. So year to year, it adjusts. This
Mm-hmm.
year, he's a top 5 quarterback. Now, the biggest thing is Brock Purdy could cement his legacy as a 49er forever. Like
Mm-hmm.
whether people don't like him or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with you in the category of people getting flack for Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
I admit it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't think Brock Purdy was him yet,
Mm-hmm.
and I said I'm gonna keep waiting to see Brock Purdy for a full season, a full length of season. And this year, he's shown that he could play in the NFL at a very very high level. Now, there's a thing where we see quarterbacks who are elite play at the high level. We've seen quarterbacks who are like Keenum come
Mm-hmm.
and play at a really high level, not elite, but a
Mm-hmm.
really, really high level statistically, lead his team to the playoffs, everything, NFC championship. next year, out of the league.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
whatever you do, there's quarterbacks that could put up those statistics, play at a very high level for 1 year because everything around them is exactly how they need it, not
Mhm.
necessarily perfect for them, but how they need it. They're at a high level. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that's Brock Purdy, but we've seen it in the NFL. We've seen it with Jimmy Garoppolo. Look at
Mhm.
his 2019 statistics. They were good. He played really. People don't realize Jimmy Garoppolo played really good football in 2019. Like he
Mhm.
played really good football, but he couldn't follow it up for the years to follow 2020, 2020. He could not follow up his 2019 season. That's why the Niners moved on. So for me, it's definitely can Brock follow up this year with a really damn good year,
Mhm.
and that's what puts him in the top 5 quarterback. You don't just get one full year and say, you know what, I'm now a top 5 quarterback in the
Yeah.
National Football League. If you want to be in that conversation year to year, you got to do it at least 2 years in a row for me.
Mhm.
But that's
Yeah.
just me.
No, I mean, and I agree, and like I get why you would say that. Like you mentioned Jalen Hurts. Well, we were talking about like, oh, is he gonna be the number 2 quarterback in the NFL behind Mahomes now? This and that. And we saw what he did, and yeah, so like that's a reason why I like you said, I do want to see it again. And again, like we were hearing this, Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's not Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's get that across. He's better than Jimmy G. I've said that before. I seen this past game, so we've seen people talk about, oh well, Jimmy's a winner. Jimmy's this. Jimmy's that. Things change from year to year. But I think that Brock has a high ceiling. That if there is a fall off, hopefully there's not, right? If there is a fall off, it's not going to be super drastic. If they keep this team together, they can be dominant for years to come. But hey, people are getting older. Kittle's getting up there in age, and so we just got to see if we can keep this team together, and can Brock continue to build on this fantastic elite year.
I think what makes the difference between the great quarterbacks and the elite quarterbacks are when you get paid financially
Mm.
and you have to start losing people. Do you stay at a high level? Do you keep your offense at a high level?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you lose players, like for example, Patrick Mahomes loses Tyreek Hill. What do they follow it up with? A Super Bowl. They trade him away. What do they Super Bowl? Like you lose the best player in the National Football League offensively. The
Mm-hmm.
best, one of the best receivers, probably if not one, he's number 2 receiver. Follows up with the Super Bowl. So for me, Albert, I'm going to give you my top 5. Now, not going to give you in an exact order because I feel like you could put them in any kind of order. For me, top 5 this year, I think Patrick Mahomes was still in the top 5, even though people don't want to talk about how good his season really was with what he had. Um, Patrick Mahomes, I think Josh Allen's up there. I thought Dak Prescott had a hell of a year. I think Brock Purdy is in there. And on the 5th quarterback, it's Lamar Jackson. Now, you could argue for another quarterback to be in there outside of Brock Purdy. For me, I feel like those are my top 5 quarterbacks. I had Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, um, Brock Purdy, and Dak Prescott. Now, I do see you, CJ Gray, saying Jordan Love should be in the top 5. For me, I feel like Jordan Love went on a great run down the stretch of the season. But looking at the entirety of the season, I felt like Jordan Love is a little bit outside of the top 5 for me in terms of being like that high level play for the entirety of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a top 5?
Yeah, I'll go. So I'll go in order with the number 1. So the 1 is Mahomes, and then I'll go out of order. So 1 is Mahomes. You got Lamar Jackson. You saw Josh Allen damn near put the whole team on his back, and for some reason he was still catching heat. Not his fault. So he's up there in my top 5. You got to put Purdy in your top 5, and we're just going this year, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Burrow's not there. Herbert's not there. You know what? 5. Dak has some weapons to play with, right? Yeah, so he can be 5, but I love what Stroud did with a team that did not have, like, they were the number 1 pick for a reason, right? Were they the number 1 pick? Did they trade it away? Were they had the
Uh,
worst record?
yeah, they had the worst record. They had number 1 overall. They
And
traded
they
it
traded the
to
Panthers.
Panthers, and then they picked up CJ Stroud and then Will Anderson.
Yeah, so they had the worst record for a reason. I know they made some acquisitions here and there, some free agent signings, draft picks, but you're not going to change in a year like that. And what we saw from CJ Stroud, and the comeback wins that he had, the close wins that he had, It's special. So you can go for my fifth. You can go Dak. You can go Purdy. You can go Stroud. You can interchange those three any way you want.
Actually, the fact that I didn't even dawn on see me thinking this year for some reason, like it didn't even dawn on me. CJ Stroud, I had CJ Stroud over.
Mhm.
People will get mad, but I had CJ Stroud over Purdy in the playoff rankings.
Mhm.
So absolutely, CJ Stroud, it will be in the top 5. Probably take. Ooh, I'd probably take
It's
Dak.
tough.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'd
either
take Dak
those
out.
three.
Yeah.
Probably take Dak out if because I felt like Purdy's earned it. He's earned the right to be in the top 5 this
Mhm.
year. But like you said, any of those three, you take them out. I get the argument. I get the
Yeah.
conversation around it. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like that player is not good enough. Like, I get the conversation. Definitely, it's interesting. Do you think the narrative around Brock Purdy for the NFL changes?
Yeah. It shouldn't. There shouldn't have been like this crazy narrative. He's been playing good, right? He's been playing good, but a lot of national media was getting a lot more attention, saying he was just great, right? He's great. He's great. He's still a young quarterback, still learning. So then that came with others saying like he's not that great. He's not this quarterback. He's not that quarterback. We shouldn't have been comparing, these quarterbacks. He's a young dude. He's playing really, really well, and it shouldn't have been this crazy narrative. But yes, I think it changed. To answer your question, it changes. He's submitted himself this year as one of the top quarterbacks, and you have an argument. I mean, yeah, you had an argument. You have an argument. So but to get off topic a little bit, none of these quarterbacks are going through what Pat Mahomes is going through. You can't name a receiver Pat Mahomes is throwing the ball to outside of this tight end, right? So it's like, come on, man, it's crazy. You got MVS. He's not a 3 for anybody.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you on that one, okay? Because
Mhm.
what's hella funny is the fourth down or the third down situation to end the game to MVS.
Mhm.
Legitimately, my first reaction was I knew
Drop,
he had caught it, but I looked over to my uncle like, "Are we sure he caught it?
drop, right?
Like,
Like
are we sure he caught it?"
you've seen him drop a touchdown to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it against? Was it against the Bills?
It might have been against the. Was it early? It
Or
was early in the season.
it was early in the season. Well, yeah, we saw him drop a touchdown, a deep ball dime in the end zone so you got him. I mean, they play um Watson, they play him a lot. McCole Hardman is not a receiver he's not a top receiver, like 2, 3, he's not a 3 in this league. Like, so
It's bad when you have Richie James taking quality reps in the AFC Championship game and
yeah,
getting targets. Richie James, like the Niner fans, y'all understand Richie James was on our roster. I get he went up for he's a good receiver, good
yeah.
complimentary fourth, fifth receiver, whatever,
Mhm.
a guy that can play special teams. But when you're actually targeting him in the AFC Championship, that just shows how depleted your receiver room is.
Yeah, and that's greatness right there. So we pay you all this money. You ain't gonna have no receivers. We're gonna have to draft you some young ones, but go ahead and take us back to the Super Bowl. And that's what he
Yeah,
did. So
but I do give credit to their defense, who is,
oh
in
yeah.
my opinion, I know people have given the Ravens the nod as the number one defense.
Mhm,
I have been saying, and I've said this a couple times, I think the Chiefs have been the best defense all season long.
mhm,
And the reason is not necessarily because of the secondary linebacking group or D line. I think that the Ravens have a better secondary
mhm.
linebacking group and defensive line than the
Yeah,
Chiefs. But the difference is Steve Spagnuolo. I think Steve
yeah,
Spagnuolo right now is the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't know.
yeah.
I cannot think of a defensive coordinator who has done as good as he has with what he has. Like now,
Mhm.
he has less than most defenses, but he's made them elite. He has guys like L'Jarius Sneed playing out of his mind at corner. He
Yeah.
has Justin Reed playing phenomenal football. Uh, Drew Tranquil, a guy who doesn't hardly play linebacker for them, has the best game of his season because he
Mhm.
had him playing downhill football in the AFC Championship. Steve Spagnuolo is the best defense coordinator in the NFL,
Credit to
and he's
him
going to be going up against the Niners, who are arguably the best offense in the NFL.
for
It is
sure.
going to be a fun ass Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Their defensive matchup, Spags knows how to dial it up with pressure, but also take away the middle of the field. That's going to be very fun. The 49ers are going to have to deal with Patrick Mahomes. Now, we'll do real quick initial thoughts, and I don't want to give no real spoilers or anything like that, because obviously we're going to have a next week to talk about the Super Bowl. I want to actually truly go in and deep dive on the Chiefs and have a full week to watch their film to see what I think the Niners should do. What were your initial thoughts? Obviously, we knew the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl before the Niners advanced. What are your initial thoughts on playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl?
It's the get back game. I remember it like it was yesterday, so I know they do. It's a lot of the same players on that team, on the Niner team, so I definitely know they remember it. And I just remember thinking like, yes, we got one, and then all hell broke loose. So those were my initial thoughts. And then my initial thoughts to the game, I think Wilkes has to take away Travis Kelce, make the other receivers beat you, and hone in on the run. Those are my initial thoughts for the game.
I think for me, my initial thought was, so my grandpa is a Chiefs fan. He went with Montana when Montana was sent over to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a big Montana fan. So he stayed with the Chiefs fan. And watching the game with the Ravens game with him, I was like, okay, you're the team we're gonna see. And he was like, so after the Niners advanced, he says, I hope y'all get one this year. He was like, I got you guys last time. I want to see y'all happy. For me, I'm like, damn, like that's very kind of you. But knowing deep down, he wants to win the damn Super Bowl. He just wants to see his grandkids happy and his kids happy. But for me, I definitely think it's a tough matchup. I do think Mahomes, not necessarily his arm, but I think Mahomes, the runner, is going to be the X factor. Because we know Niners could take away key things. Niners could take away Travis Kelce. I would love to see Charvarius Ward actually shadow Travis Kelce.
I like that.
And that's just initial, like, kind of boom. Like when we talked about it last week, Charvarius Ward does better on bigger players. That's kind of something I've thought about real quick. But I do think you're going to have to come out and punch the Kansas City Chiefs in the mouth. They're a team that is a lot more physical than people think. I think if the way they played the Ravens, their offense, if you go back and watch, just for those who really want to watch the Chiefs and Ravens game, go back. Do not watch the ball. Watch the trenches. The Chiefs were the more physical team, and it wasn't close. The finesse that is labeled around Andy Reid should not be called finesse anymore.
Right.
They were freaking filthy on in terms of physicality. That to me is the difference. Can you match their physicality in the trenches? That's my biggest thing, is if you could match it, you could win this game. If you cannot match the physicality in the O-line and the D-line, it's gonna be a very, very long game.
Yep. I like it.
But make sure what's up, CG?
What up?
Make sure you guys go and you guys hit that like and subscribe button on Clutch Gene Sports. Go over to Josh Harp TV. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button there as well. Any final thoughts?
Man, I'm just excited, man. Another Super Bowl in my lifetime. That's 3 so far.
And you're going to this one, right?
I'm going to this one, so I'm just excited. I'm excited, man. I do want to dive deep and see, talk about this Kansas City Chiefs game next week. But man, just initially, I'm excited. Happy for the team. Happy for Purdy. Happy for Shanahan, all the players, my brother. So yeah, I'm happy. But I know they want, they're not happy or content just being there. They want to win it. So no, I'm excited.
Yeah, if you guys aren't familiar, Josh Harper's brother is the 49ers assistant special team coach, Matthew Harper. Josh also played in the NFL for the Las Vegas Raiders. He also played college football at Fresno State. He's a legend at Fresno State. Make sure you guys tap in with him. Follow him on Twitter in the description on Clutch Gene Sports. It is in the description. You guys can subscribe to his channel as well. Thank you guys all for tuning in. See you guys next time.